have like somebody you saw, you like, I want to do that? Or did you just like fall into like the comedy club part of it?
I was in a little situation one time. I was in a work release center, and it was a dude named Daryl Outlaw who was sleeping in the higher bunk than me. He was up there laughing, and I was like, what you laughing at? And he had a Walkman. Remember those Walkmans that you put your tape cassette in?
I'm not young, I remember.
Put the tape cassette in, and he was laughing. I was like, what you laughing at? And that was the first time I heard Richard Pryor.
Oh, wow.
You know, I ain't really hear Richard Pryor till I was 21, 22 years old.
Right.
It was like when I heard him talking, I was like, man, he's talking about some stuff that I've seen around here.
Right.
By the time I've seen Def Comedy Jam come on, I was like, oh, I can do that.
Right.
Martin Lawrence. 25 years ago, check this out. Bust it. 25 years ago, I was a young, hungry comic trying to find my way in this game, man. And dude came out of nowhere and said, come eat at my table. Just like you with your artist Puff, he's did that with me. He's my OG. He will always be my OG. I love you. Ain't gonna never stop. Word is born. Word is born. Thank you. Me and my family, thank you for giving me an opportunity, Martin. I love you so much.
So the comedy camp is at the Laugh Factory, and they have, every summer, they have like inner city kids come in, not just inner city, but at-risk youth and kids that want to perform that might have like speech issues or issues talking in public or whatever. And they come in, and every Saturday, you get to get on stage and you tell jokes. You learn from other comedians, like Dan Cook came through there, the Wayans brothers came through there, and Richard Pryor showed up. And when he came in, he was in his wheelchair, he rolled in there. I was like, ooh, I need a wheelchair. That's how I need rich. Like, I thought rich people had wheelchairs. Anyways, I was up there telling my jokes, and he stopped me in the middle of it. He's like, stop, what are you doing? I said, I'm telling a joke. He goes, no, you're not. I said, yes, I am. He goes, no, you're not. I said, yes, I am. He goes, no, you're not. I said, what am I doing? And he said, you're getting on my goddamn nerves. That's what you're doing. I was like, what do you mean? He said, look, people don't come to comedy shows because they want to hear about your problems or politics or religion or about what's like pop culture. They come to comedy shows to have fun. So when you're on stage, you need to be having fun. And that's what I'm doing now. And I have fun no matter where I go, no matter what I do. I try to have fun.
I did stand up early in my career, like when I was like 17, 19. I did it like 60 times. Chris Rock heckled me, I quit. He's an asshole for that. I'm gonna go to his next taping. I'm gonna heckle him.
I feel like that'll make anybody quit.
You get heckled by a legend. All right, so I quit, and then I didn't do it again until I did a movie called Behind the Smile that my brother Damon directed, and it's about a comedian. So I started doing stand-up because I had to do that role, and it was a great movie. He never released it. I don't know why, but he has my Oscar in a closet somewhere in his house. And so after that, I didn't do stand-up again. And then I auditioned for the role of Pryor. And the actor in me brought me to the stage, because if I'm gonna play Richard Pryor, then I better get my black ass on stage. And ever since I started doing comedy, I found that I didn't want to play a great, I want to be a great.
But one night, we were just sitting on the patio, me and my girlfriend's hot, Long Beach night, and making them homemade margaritas and shit. And I guess what he said stuck in my head. I didn't really think of jokes. I still don't tell jokes. But some funny stuff had happened to me recently, came up in my mind. I said, maybe we go down this old club and I'll, tell this little story or whatever.
And how'd it go?
And we went down. I crushed it the very first time I was on stage. And in a minute I stepped off stage, I met a comedian who gave me his card and told me, he said, you's a funny little bitch. And that was the late, great Robin Harris.
Oh.
So that was the first comedian I ever met. And he was sort of like my mentor to me. I don't think he even knew how much he meant to me. But, I've always identified with him not being like traditional looking and sort of having country type swag and just being real regular and accessible. So anyway, that's, basically how I got into shit.
But my biggest moment and my best moment for hosting Comic View was working with Mr. Ronaldo Ray. Ronaldo Ray was a very smart person. He was my mentor. He gave me a lot of pointers that really worked and helped me. And he was just naturally smart. People don't know Ronaldo was a college professor.
I
He
didn't know
taught
that.
school, yes. And he was genuine. And then when I messed up, he said, "What'd you do that for?" He like a
Yeah.
father figure.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, when I straighten, he said, okay, don't do that. He said, do it like this, and I guarantee it'll work. And every time I did it, it was like on the money. So he was like my biggest inspiration on BET Comic View.
And then I was standing there outside of the comedy club. Everybody went home, and I was standing there, and I saw Eddie Griffin and Andrew Dice Clay. He was smoking a cigar. And I was looking at them. Eddie Griffin swears to this day I was trying to sleep with him, that I was a groupie. But I was just nervous. I was a Jehovah's Witness. And I just was looking at him. And I walked up to him and I said, and I probably did sound like, that's probably how groupies sound. They sound like, oh my gosh. And I went up to them and I said, and at the time my voice was really high because I was like in my 20s. And I said, I want to try that. Like, how do I do it? And Eddie Griffin or Andrew, he said, you just do it. Yeah. And I said, but I'm scared. And I don't know which one it was, but I think it was Eddie Griffin. He said, do it scared. And that's my mantra that I live by, do it scared.
Did you know Robin Harris? You remember Robin Harris?
Yes. He was actually the guy that inspired me to do comedy the most. Robin showed up as this guy that you definitely identified with. He was like really regular. He didn't wear the shiny suits and have gloves with rings on them. Or, like his style was very like conversational. I was on first class. You want your meal now? I want everything I'm supposed to get in first class. What? Like it was the rhythm of it. Give me everything I'm supposed to get in first class.
But I will say I was on the set of Eddie Murphy and Red Fox.
Was that Life?
No.
Wait.
You got to go back.
Oh, no.
With
Eddie Murphy, Red Fox.
Eddie Murphy, Red Fox, Richard Pryor.
Harlem Nights.
Harlem Nights. You better say it. Harlem Nights. Remember the little boy in the beginning that played Eddie Murphy?
Yes.
Well, Desi Arnaz Jr., but Desi Arnaz was in the acting class, his father. And he was like, Kim, I got to work. He said, can you go to the set? He got a part. He said, can you go to the set and be his chaperone? I said, sure. I was on that set and I thought I was already an actress. I don't know why I was walking around eating craft service, but I was his guardian. That's what it was. And I'll never forget. At that time I had started writing down a couple jokes, and I went around a corner, and they were waiting on the next scene, and it was Red Fox. It was Richard Pryor. It was Eddie Murphy, and it was Ronaldo Ray. And they were all back there clowning, and I walked around the corner. I was like, you see the stars like that. I was like, oh. And I'll never forget, Ronaldo Ray said, trying to be funny. All the comics trying to be funny. He said, oh, girl, he said, you want a seat? He said, well, as long as I got a face, you got somewhere to sit. And I looked at him, and I said, well, as long as you got a face like that, I guess I'll be standing. And Red Fox spit his coffee. Richard Pryor got up, they were slapping fire, and I was horrified.
Right. You were like, well, I guess that's the end of this.
Oh my God, I was like, oh my God, I just
got here.
Right, but I didn't understand that. Yeah. I was like, oh my God, why'd I do that?
Yeah.
When I tell you, Red Fox came up to me, he said, you're very funny. He said, do you have 10 minutes of comedy? First of all, 10 minutes, that's like an hour.
Yes.
I was like, what? No, he said, you should be a stand-up comic. He said, I'm tired of seeing these ugly bitches be funny. I never forget it. I was like, oh my God. And that's back in the day. Yes. And I said, okay. He said, get 10 minutes together and I'll help you. Well, then my mother in my ear, when you go to LA, there's gonna be sex, drugs, and rock and roll. So I was looking at Red Fox, I was like, he is sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And I never took the 10 minutes to him, never used that opportunity. The night he died, I did my first 2 minutes of stand-up.
Oh, wow.
Because I felt like I had missed an opportunity.
Yeah.
Bernie Mac was our favorite. Bernie Mac meant something to us. He was the one of us that we all sat around the monitors to watch. Because, Bernie closed the show. And, we'd watch each other, but when Bernie went on stage, it was different. We went out there to see it. We all were stand-ups, but we was in love with Mac, man, because Mac didn't just want to make you laugh. He tried to throw you into something and then make you laugh at shit you had no business laughing at. Preachers, crippled people, Bernie just started.
Bernie Mac's like the Satchel Paige of stand-up. You know what I mean? He was killing it for years. Nobody puts him on TV. Def Comedy Jam puts him on TV, and he's, a mega star basically 2 years after. Chris Tucker, Cheryl Underwood, the dirtiest comedian that ever walked the earth. I don't know if there's anybody I want to follow less than Cheryl Underwood. It's like a toss-up between her and Bernie.